Hey, Ron.
Morning.
Good evening. Good morning, Ron. Sorry. Do you have Wendy as well with you?
No, hang on just a second.
Ron, just let us know whenever we can start.
Ron,
Emily, do you know what the
I was
status
just going
is
to
with
say,
Timoteo or Leah?
No, I assume they're trying to sign on. Let me see if I can get either of them on Skype.
Wendy's here.
Built her twice. Is somebody else logged in on the Village Reach account?
No.
No,
It's here.
Was that Alan?
Yes, it is.
Oh, Alan must be the one of Village Reach then, because he's not listed separately. Wendy, do you know anything about Leah or Timoteo?
Are you taping this?
No, I've been getting emails from them, but so they're alive and they're around.
Okay, I just don't see either of them on Skype, so I can't. And Timoteo's usually on Skype when he's on.
Ron, it looks like you have been requesting the remote control of the desktop. Was it intentional or?
I just want to confirm that this is being recorded. Alan, do you have control of this? Can you tell if it's being recorded?
No, I don't know.
What we'll do is we'll do a screen recording of the demo, and then we'll send you the file, Ron.
I can also log into the account and try it.
Or Timoteo?
I just
We've already
emailed
got
them.
two of us logged in. The third one isn't going to help.
I guess we need to get started. I'm not sure what's going on. I mean, Leah's been sending emails as of seconds ago, so.
Okay, let's get going, Bajesh, Belvinder.
Hello, everybody. Let's get on with the showcase for iteration 19. Iteration 19 was a good iteration for us. We did around 24 points of actual completion of stories against a plan of 20. So we also took a couple of major decisions over this last iteration with respect to both VRMIS and OpenLMIS. So one of the key achievements of this iteration, if I have to highlight is, if you look at the highlights from the iteration, is that we now support multilingual, multi-languages in both OpenLMIS and VRMIS. This is a that Balwinder is going to we also took the decision to not to merge requisition groups and delivery zones. We did a thorough code analysis on what will be the impact if we have to do a requisition group and delivery zone merge, and eventually we came up with the pros and cons of both the approaches and decided not to go with the merge at this point of time. We also looked at briefly at the VRMIS reports to understand that can be managed with the current we discussed and finalized the offline flow for VRMIS or the push-based, allocation-based programs. For the request-based programs, we had discussions on the regiments part. We finalized that here as well. The contract discussions continue, and we expect to make good progress in ITC. We also did of the distribution module into code during iteration 19. So this is the high-level highlights from the last iteration. So I will now hand it over to Balwinder to take us through the series of stories that were completed during this last iteration.
Hello everyone. Showcase of these stories. Ron, I do see Timothy, but I do not see Leah yet. So do we want to wait for her or we can proceed?
Roger and I are going to get on together. Yeah, yeah.
So I'll begin with the showcase of these stories. Yes, Amit. Amit, your voice is so it's very low. Can you be a little louder?
Just a question. Just wanted to make sure that somebody has already started the recording of the session.
Yes, we have started the recording of the conversation.
Thanks.
Okay. So starting with the demo. As Bijesh already mentioned that now OpenLMIS and VRMIS both have language support. So first of all, I'm going to showcase the multiple language support. Since currently the multiple languages are supported per deployment. So for one deployment, we are supporting one language. So I'm going to showcase the stories related to multiple language on my local box, which is currently configured for Portuguese.
I have to put in a disclaimer here saying that, we did the translation based on Google Translate. So if there is any mistakes on the translation, you would have to forgive us for that and blame Google Translate.
So currently what you see on screen is my local box. This particular deployment has been configured for Portuguese language, and what you see is the login screen. As you can see, all the messages, the placeholders, which are the username and password box placeholders, links, etc., everything is coming up in Portuguese. For the purpose of showcase, we'll be going over two screens, the login screen and the forgot password screen. So I'll click on the forgot password link, which takes me to the forgot password screen. This is my forgot password screen. Again, if you see all the messages, the placeholders, everything is coming up in Portuguese. Also, if I try to put in any user and do a submit, the error messages that come up, they are also in Portuguese. So the multiple languages stories, there are 4 stories which are covering this: story 740, 743, 742 and 847, which basically covers all the messages, placeholders and the error messages. Now, moving on to the next story, I'll take you to the UAT box. The UAT is currently configured for English language. The first story that we are going to showcase is story 851, which is program type based types. So this particular story is related to allocation based programs. Since we are now introducing allocation based programs in our system, we also need to have corresponding rights. So we have introduced a story which lets you create a role for allocation based programs. So I'll log in through admin. And I'll go on manage role screen. I'll try to add a new role, which takes me to the add new role landing page. If you see, we have now divided our rights into three basic types. The first one being the admin and the general operations right, second one being allocation based program rights, and the third is request based program rights. So what essentially it means is whenever you are creating a role, you first need to choose a type of role that you want to create, since these individual rights cannot be mixed into a single role. So for example, if I have selected admin and general operations rights, the rights related to allocation program based and request program based are currently disabled. I can only choose the rights in the admin and create a role out of these. Once I select allocation program based rights, the system prompts me that if I change the type, all the selections in current type will be removed. Click OK. Now if you see, the admin and the request program based rights have been disabled. I can only choose the rights under allocation program based rights. I select a right. Let's call it distributor. And I click on save. So it takes me back to the roles listing screen, where I see my newly created right role and the right. This is it as far as this particular story is concerned. Moving on to the next story. This is story number 834, which is define ISA formula.
So basically, you had seen define ISA formula last time around as well. But what we have done with this iteration is we have enhanced whatever we have done over the last iteration, and the screen looks entirely different this time for entering the formula. So the user with manage program product right is the person who gets this facility to actually define the formula for an ISA. So what you would do is you would essentially go into admin tab, go into the configure, and say, program product ISA. So for that, then the admin would basically choose the program, which is essentially an allocation-based program, which is the vaccine. And against here, what you would see is the list of products basically assigned to this particular program. So we have a set of 4 or 5 products that we have listed here, and for each one of these products, what you can do is you can essentially edit the formula. So currently none of these products have any formula defined against them. So let's say that for polio 10 dose, I want to edit the formula and put in the values for each of these individual attributes. So let's say that I have a target population percentage of say 3.9. My doses per patient is 4. My average wastage rate is 10. The buffer stock level that I have to maintain is 25. And the adjustment quantity, let's say, is 4 doses. Right? So we have also put in validations against each of these particular fields, wherein they cannot be more than 6 digits of doses per patient per year. You cannot have negative values in dosages. You cannot have characters entered in the percentages or doses. So all those sort of validations have been put in. So let's say that, we also have this population that you can test this particular formula with. So let's say I'm testing it with a population of 10,000. And then what I do is I click on the test calculation and it tells me that, 183 doses of vaccines per month is required for a population of 10,000. And this is based on the formula that you've defined earlier. Now, what you can also do is you can put as minimum value to that. So let's say that, if the population of 10,000 requires 185 doses or say 200 doses, then you can put that minimum value in there, which would be 200, and you do the test calculation and the dosage for 10,000 for a population of 10,000 changes to 200. You can also eliminate that and say that, let's say that maximum value that you want to give is say 150, and the test changes accordingly. So this is something that you can do to actually define your formula here. So this is a place where you come in and define the formula for each of those individual products for a particular program. So you do a save. What happens is that particular formula is displayed against the product name. So, you can go ahead and display edit the formulas for each of these individual products. So this was what story 834 was all about. And the next story that we would go into is defining the ISA per product on a per facility basis.
Currently what we have seen is we are trying to configure the ISA per program product, that is all the products under the program vaccine. This is a universal change. It would affect all the facilities running this particular program. The next story that we have is overriding the ISA on per product per facility basis. So as an admin, I go to manage facilities screen. It takes me to the search facility. I search for a facility and try to edit that particular facility. The facility now supports a push-based program which is called vaccines, and I try to add this particular program. As soon as I add this particular program, I get the program type against this program. In case I add a requisition or which is a pull-based program, it will notify me accordingly that it is a request-based program. For each of a push-based or allocation-based programs, I also get the option to modify the ISA values. When I click on this particular link, I'm presented with a list of products in this particular program. As you can see, each of the products has calculated ISA and an overridden ISA. Since we had calculated the ISA for polio 10 dose while demoing the previous story, that particular value is displayed over here. This value 898 is corresponding to the catchment population of this particular facility. When I try to override the value of polio 10 dose, so for example, in this particular facility, I choose to go with an overridden value instead of a calculated value. I also get an option to use calculated again. So this use calculated button is basically a reverse. So for example, I override the value of ISA for a particular product, but later I decide to go back to the calculated ISA value. I can say use calculated, and it again starts using the calculated ISA value. In case any of the product has overridden ISA values, these particular values will be used while planning your load or while recording the data. You also have an option to reset all the calculated ISA. So this button would actually use the calculated ISA for all the products and neglect the overridden ISA. Then I have to click on done to override the ISA and save the changes to this particular facility. This was regarding story, modify ISA per product per.
Sorry, can I ask a question about that story?
Yes, please.
So I just want to make sure I understand. I think, so that then will use that ISA for as long as you do not say go back to calculated. So for the period of time you've overridden that ISA, you've saved it until you go back to that health center and say use calculated, it will continue using that ISA for reports and for planning the load. Is that correct?
Exactly, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
So with this, we come to an end of stories related to allocation-based programs. Now we'll move back to requisition-based or request-based programs. The next story is add regiments for a program. Okay, so the story number is 760. As a part of this story, we provide admin with an option to manage the regiment template. So we have introduced a new right, which is to manage regiment template. So this particular role, the admin role with which I have logged in, it already has this particular right, which is called as manage regiment template. Once any user has this particular right, manage regiment template, a user starts getting an option of regiment template under the configure menu. When I click on regiment template, I am presented with a screen which displays all the programs for which I can configure the regiment template. It also says whether the template has been already configured or not. If the template has not been configured, the button against the program says configure, else it says it displays the link with an edit option. I click on the configure button and I land on this page which displays two tabs, the regiments and the reporting fields. Under the regiments tab, I get an option to add a new regiment for this particular program. To add a new regiment, category, code and name are the mandatory values. The categories for regimen are adults and pediatrics, which are the predefined categories in the system. I select the category. I select a code for this particular, I type in a code for this particular regimen and the name of the regiment. By default, all the regiments, newly created regiments are active. I add this particular regimen and I get it in the list below. It is displayed categorically. So if I add another regimen, which is a pediatrics regimen, it will start displaying in another category. The user also has an option to edit a regimen after it has been added. So you can click on the edit button. You can edit the details, whatever are needed, and then click on done to save your changes. We also have an option to set the display order of the regiments via drag and drop functionality. For that, I'll just add another regimen. As soon as I add a regimen, I can drag and drop these regiments to change their display order. And on the basis of this particular display order, they'll appear in the form on the RNR screen. Also, code is a unique field in a regimen across a program. So if I try to add a regimen for which the code is already there, it would give me an error saying that it cannot add duplicate regimen code for same program. After this, I click save, which saves the regimen for this particular program. As you can see, the link against essential medicines has changed from configure to edit, which means that the regimens have already been added for this particular program. If I go back to the screen, it displays all the regimens that were previously added. This is as far as story add regimens for a program is concerned. We move on to the next story, which is configure regimen reporting field for a program. Once I add regimens for a particular program, I can also configure reporting fields for that particular program. What essentially means is the columns that would be displayed again each of the regimens. So if I click on the reporting fields tab, It displays me the default columns that will be available against each of the regimens, the column name label, and the data type that will be entered under that column. So the 4 default columns are number of patients on treatment, number of patients to be initiated treatment, number of patients dropped treatment, and remarks. You can edit the label of all these fields. You can also choose whether or not to display these particular columns on the requisition screen. And you can click on Save. This will configure the way regimen would appear on the requisition screen.
You would get to see how they're displayed on the RNA screen, basically on the next iteration. So we are currently playing a story specifically on how the regimens would look on the RNA screen. So that would come in the next iteration showcase.
Okay. Apart from all these functional stories, there were also some tech tasks or the technical stories that we did, as Vijesh mentioned. The first one of them was IndexedDB Spike, which is related to the offline storage which we need for allocation-based programs. In that spike, we have tried to identify how much data would IndexedDB support. So IndexedDB supports around 50 MB of data. We also identified if IndexedDB support is available across all the browsers, which is available, and we did a small demo to store and retrieve data from the IndexedDB database. We also worked on optimizing the required.js. So required.js that we were using in our system was essentially slowing down the load of pages. We have optimized that, and the pages are loading comparatively very fast. And the last thing that we did under technical stories was analysis of processing group merge. We tried to analyze what are the code impacts and the functional impacts of merging delivery zones with requisition groups, and we came up with all the outcomes of that. Now I would like to showcase one feedback that was provided, which is regarding the scroll on the requisition screen. For that, I'll log in as a store in charge user. I'll try to create a requisition. So the feedback was when there are large number of products and the page is scrolling more than one page, we were not able to see the horizontal scroll bar. The user had to scroll to the bottom of the page to see the horizontal scroll bar. For that, we have provided the floating horizontal scroll bar now. So if you see, we have a horizontal scroll bar here. You can use this particular scroll bar even if you are not at the end of the page. So this would let you navigate horizontally, and it will float as you scroll the vertical scroll bar. As soon as the user scrolls to the end of the page, the default scroll bar starts appearing and the floating scroll bar disappears. When the user scrolls back up, again the floating horizontal scroll bar appears, and user can use this particular scroll bar to navigate horizontally. However, there are certain enhancements which are left on this particular scroll bar that we have introduced. So ideally, a scroll bar should scroll the screen on the click of the scroll menu, but it is not happening right now. So that would come up as an enhancement in next iteration.
So we are working to enhance the scroll bar. This is something that will appear both on the RNR screen as well as on the load amount screen for the different facilities. So we'll have this scroll bar also introduced on that screen. So those were the stories that we wanted to showcase in this citation.